Time is now 3:02. You already up? Jennifer, you're up. Time is now 3:02, and I'd like to call the Community Development Committee to order. And as customary, let's bow our head in silence for invocation, our prayer. Amen. Thank you. Public participation. I don't think we have anyone here. No one signed up.
Nobody has signed up online.
Okay, we don't have anyone on participation, so we go move on down to the minutes. May I have a motion, please, for October 16th.
Move for approval.
And second.
It was moved in second. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Opposes? Ayes have it. We don't have no old business, so we go on to the new business. The first item, we have a resolution certifying one building site as an abandoned building pursuant to the South Carolina Abandoned Building Revitalization Code Act 2013, Title 12, Chapter 67.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we take items 1 and 2 together and move for approval on both. Both abandoned building.
Second.
It was moving properly second that we take item 1 and 2 together, all vote by saying aye.
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 Opposes? Ayes have it. Move on down to item number 3, presentation of project 3500.
Mr. Chairman, while we're loading the presentation, if you would be willing, I'd like to ask that we move the approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Hope Center and the city up, so we make sure we cover that, because before we get into the presentation, amend the agenda.
Heard the motion that we move item number 5 up.
Second.
Item 6, yeah.
Okay,
Item 6, rather. Item 6 up.
Yeah.
You have a motion? Have a second?
it was second, yeah.
Second, Caroline.
Okay, moving second. All vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes? No. Ayes have it. So we'll move that up. So who's going to be doing that presentation?
Yeah, and I can give a brief update here. This is an agreement between the city of Charleston and the Hope Center, extending our partnership, if you will, for 2 years. There's a draft of the document that has been provided. It needs a few edits. We weren't able to do that in advance of this meeting, so I'd like to ask that we agree to allow legal to finalize those details and bring the final document, the MOU, to council for approval. Again, this is just extending them where they are. It's in our 26 budget for 2 years. That's the time we have left on that lease, and we are working through a path forward after that still has the rapid shelter. But I've been talking with their board about potential other options so that we can holistically address the homeless issue. So very supportive of the effort, very supportive of all the work that the Hope Center is doing. Want to keep it continued. Just need to tweak this language a little bit from the draft that was submitted in the package.
Anyone have any questions pertaining to that? No questions. So we need to
So my
Make a
motion would
motion.
be, that we approve, subject to a few legal tweaks that will be presented for council's approval, I think on December 2nd or whenever the next council meeting is, yeah.
we have a motion. Do I get a second?
Second.
Okay, moving second, all vote by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposes? Ayes have it. Are you ready for the presentation, or are we going to go somewhere else?
I'll do we ready? Yeah, perfect. We ready to start, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, well, appreciate members of the council, members of the committee being on, and obviously members of council that have signed on as well to hear. This is what we're internally calling Project 3500, and it stems from the Bloomberg analysis that we all learned about earlier this year, result of about 2 years' worth of work from Bloomberg to determine what our needs are as it relates to affordable housing. And without getting into too much, let me see if this works, excuse me. Have a little issue. Might be. So again, here's the Bloomberg bullet points here that obviously I don't have to tell you all that the area has increased significantly. The AMI has doubled over the past 12 years, which means not that a lot of people are making so much more money, but we have smaller and wealthier households that are coming to Charleston. We have lower income households that are continuing to lose out, and market conditions pushing people out. That adds to traffic, et cetera. And so we came up with a goal of approximately 3,500 new affordable housing units over the next 7 years, or really now 6 years, because this project began in 2024, which is a big undertaking. And so what we're here today to talk about is how we're going to achieve that goal, which is going to be no easy task, but I hope by the end of this, we'll all agree that it is, will be hard, but it is actually very achievable with everybody leaning in. So what we did as a city is we took the Bloomberg report and we started looking at properties, and this was at the advice of Councilman Waring and others, like where are publicly owned properties, and I say public, not just city, but county, school district, MUSC, housing authority properties. Where's the low-hanging fruit that could accommodate housing in the city of Charleston? And how can we fit 3,500 units on those properties or nearby? And I got to give a real hats off to staff, because they didn't just identify properties, they created an algorithm that ranked those properties. And they went through all of these different scoring criteria, like access to public transportation, current zoning, where it was, if it was high or low ground. I mean, really thoughtful approach that staff put into this, and again, weighted these different sites. And you can see here, the ones in purple were the ones that ranked the highest. And so that was our guide frame, that was our guidelines for determining where we could find these 3,500 units. And a lot of these you'll see in terms of just job centers and public transportation and zoning. A lot of them did fall on the peninsula, which shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of people. That's where a lot of our affordable housing stock currently resides as well. And so we took a pretty close look at that and started mapping out where these different projects could go. And you've got these 4 areas that we'll get into in a little bit more detail here in a second, but also want to make sure that this is not just the peninsula. There are projects, and it is necessary for projects, affordable housing projects, to be all over the city of Charleston, not just downtown. And so in breaking things down, we came up with this list, and this is how our roadmap, if you will, to get to 3,500 units. In fact, 3,519 units. So a little bit of fluff there, a little bit of cushion, but we broke them down between, some of these projects have actually been completed. You see the one on top, about 178 units have been delivered. And that's like the Archer School and some other things that were ongoing and were being worked on. And just between now and when this process started last year, have come online. And then we have almost 1,000 units that are under development. And when we say under development, they are owned by a developer, or we're working with a developer through TRC. Some of them are a little bit further along, some are, but we feel very good that these are going to make. These are going to, far enough along in the process where over the next 6 to 7 years, we have confidence that they will actually turn into housing. So that's 1,000 in aggregate, which leaves us with approximately 2,500 units that we need to account for. And so that's where that breakdown comes from. And this shows where the completed units are. And you can see here, almost all of the recently completed units are on the peninsula. You have the ones that are being worked on right now. A lot of them are on the peninsula, but there are several that are off the peninsula, three on Johns Island, and then several in West Ashley. And again, this is part of your package, the list on all of them being broken down. So again, that we feel pretty confident about those 1,000, plus or minus. So how are we going to get the 2,500? And that's where these circles come into account, and that's where the majority of this presentation is going to be about. And the way we see that happening is to work with the Housing Authority on their properties. And they've been pretty bullish on redeveloping their existing housing stock. I don't think I have to tell you all that the housing projects are very, very dated. I like to say that they've fully depreciated not once, but twice. And I got to hand it to the Housing Authority. They've actually done a really good job of managing the existing assets that they have. I mean, it's a really tough task. They get beat up a lot because there's problems on those units, but I mean, some of them are almost 100 years old. And, you know, I can tell you, we got buildings that were built 5 years ago that have scaffolding around them and got all kinds of leaks in them. So, you know, but I think they are committed to making sure that they ultimately redevelop. And so what we're doing is potentially partnering with them to figuring out how to expedite that and not take it. They were originally looking at doing one piece here, one piece here, one piece there, one piece there. And that gets really, really complicated. And so what we're working with them on is kind of throwing it all in and us putting in property with them to form a partnership that we would do entitlements to the properties. We would work with them on design, and we would do stuff that was of scale and of mass for the city of Charleston, not your large-scale buildings. And ultimately, though, bring in a private developer to help us develop collectively these 4 different areas. And we'll get into a little bit more why these areas are defined as such here in a minute. But these are the Housing Authority sites, and these are all together. And this is how I think we can do this. And this is, again, a general timeline for getting us not only to the 3,500 units, but a realistic time frame in which to get them there. Now, it is aggressive. And to date, over the past 7 years, we delivered just under 400 units total. So this is a pretty monumental undertaking, and it's complicated. But if we kind of think about it as a larger vision and a larger project and not have it fractured and piecemeal, I think we can get a lot of forward momentum and make this timeline. So what are we going to do with regards to the Housing Authority properties? First and foremost, the guiding principle here is to have no displacement. Make sure that the current residents that are living in these properties are not displaced. They don't have to move away and come back when a new building is built, because what history tells us is when that happens, people don't come back, right? And we've lost a lot of the population that lives downtown, particularly lower income, over the past 20 years because of economic pressures, and we don't want to exacerbate that. So making sure people that are there now can stay there. And the way you do that is through a build first program. You take a housing authority property like Gadsden Green, and you put in a city property or a city partnership property like West Edge, and you build a facility on West Edge first, vacant land, move people from the housing authority first phase into that building, and then keep going. But again, making sure there's a lot of community input, making sure that there's a public-private partnership, which we'll get into in more detail. But another thing that we want to do here is bring in a new zoning classification. We have MUWH, we have MUWH2. What this would be MUWH3. And the only difference between it and MUWH2 is that this would have 50% of the units permanently deed restricted for affordability, with a breakdown of, I'll get to the breakdown, but a tiered breakdown on affordability that would make sure that they are permanently reserved for affordable residents in perpetuity. But so that this isn't a concentration of poverty and affordable housing, these sites would no longer just be low income. They would be mixed income. 50% of the units would be market rate. And to give you some perspective, right now, the housing authority properties are on average 20 units an acre. That's extremely low density. That's like suburban density in terms of apartments. And so what we're looking to do is 4X that, to go to 80 units an acre, which can be done with 3 to 5 story buildings. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But that would be the zoning classification that we're talking about, not just city-owned properties that would be put into this pool, but also housing authority properties. Now, we have a question from Councilman Gregory.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, we're really talking about 7,000 units, aren't we?
We're talking about of the 2,500 affordable that we need, it would actually be 5,000. So 2,500 would be affordable, and if that's half of it, that would be 5,000 total.
Okay. Okay. All right. We're in the same place. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, you're right. And
We're talking about more than just 3,500 units.
It's 5,000 total, 2,500 of which would be permanently deed restricted, 2,500 of which would be market rate.
Okay. Thank you.
And then what we would also be doing in this effort is, by working with the housing authority and doing something this, I think, frankly, innovative. We've been working with HUD, we've been working with state, or talking to state. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity of consolidation and figuring out the financing structure on this, because it is going to be complicated. And it's going to be expensive too. But it's something that there is money out there for. We just need to be organized about it. And again, what we don't want to have, and one of the reasons I want to have a partnership with the housing authority, and we don't just leave it only to the private sector, is a lot of what the private sector is building is here. And this is the most cost-effective way of building things, and it's the Texas donut. It's a large mass. The most valuable thing that Charleston has, I think we can all agree, or one of the top 2 or 3, is our built environment. And so we want to make sure that that is not just protected, but enhanced. And so what we're looking at doing is not what's on your left, but on your right, which is compliments of Liberatus and a part of a study that was done several years ago, but of scale and mass to the city of Charleston. And let me just wrap up and say on this, the one on the right is a lot more expensive to build than the one on the left. I want to be very open and clear about that. But when you're building 5,000 units of the one on the right, you get economies of scale, and you can help close that gap on cost differential. And the way we do that is we look at residential typologies. And I know we're in the weeds here, guys, but this is important, because the building prototypes that we're talking about is how we're going to achieve cost effectiveness, and be able to do this. And have clarity and manage expectations on what our expectations would be for the private sector coming in. And so what we've done is we've said, okay, we've looked at a single house, we've looked at, a fourplex, we've looked at, mid-rise, and then we've looked at a version, we've looked at slightly larger than that, and then we've looked at a version that does have some structured parking. All four of these building types, if you see the pictures on the right, and I'll go back, these have precedent in the city of Charleston, both old and new. So we're trying to learn from our own built environment on how to accomplish these goals of delivering a real neighborhood back to our community that has affordability. And again, these are just architectural details. And I think this is important to note that a lot of people, and I talked to the newspaper today about all the different projects between Union Pier, Magnolia, this potentially, how you're talking about significantly more population on the peninsula, which I don't have to tell everybody, has been declining in population until just last year was the first year it slightly went up from year over year. But for 50 years, it's been going down in population, and that's predominantly lower income families that have been moved off. And so what we're trying to do is reverse the trend in terms of whether or not we as a city or the peninsula in particular can handle it. I think I don't have to remind you all that 75 years ago, the population of the peninsula was double what it is today. So we've got a lot of capacity and room to grow. And it was because of buildings like this that house multiple people. And this, and this. So, we need to get into the weeds a little bit, and what we've been working hard on with West Edge Foundation and the Housing Authority is to come up with ways to come together and formalize this partnership so that we can actually achieve this. And again, everybody, what's excited about this is everybody has the same goal. Everybody knows that this is, as I've said repeatedly, the most pressing social, cultural, and economic issue that we're facing. And so everybody's leaning in. Of course, details to be determined. So we're working on that. This is we presented these ideas to West Edge, to the Housing Authority. They're generally supportive. We're now coming back with some details on how to move the ball forward. This is the first I would say presentation on that. The same presentation will be given to the Housing Authority. Same presentation will be given to West Edge. And everybody's got to agree for this to happen. But West Edge, again, you know the property. You see it here and its relationship on the right side to Gadsden Green. This was the original master plan that was much more geared towards biotech and research labs. Well, with the departure of Roper St. Francis and MUSC backfilling the campus that became more their focus, and they were very transparent and open about this. But the big issue they really now have is housing for their technicians, for their residents, for their doctors. I mean, all across their employment spectrum, they need housing. And so we looked at how we could split this up, and we started taking those building prototypes that we talked about earlier, and actually drop them in to these different reconfigurations of the West Edge property. And we did it not just here, but also did it, I think, there we go, and showing how it could convey over to Gadsden Green. So this would truly be a neighborhood. This would no longer be like where the Housing Authority properties are now. You feel like that you can't walk in between those houses. That's private property, or that's not somewhere you should go. This would be opening up the public realm. It would be creating more green space. It would be, I think, solving and addressing a lot of our issues and frankly, mistakes that have been made in the past, and working to correct them. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, okay, we talked about that. what's going to happen to the old public housing so far as Gadsden Green is concerned, that particular area?
All of it would ultimately be replaced.
Okay,
The goal is to completely replace the public housing stock on the peninsula, with the potential exception of the Robert Mills Manor, which was one of the first built and might be protected. But even that's open for consideration. But what we're focusing on right now is Gadsden Green, Meeting Street Manor Extension, Cooper River Courts, Ragboro Homes, and I think I've covered them all.
so we're saying in the old Gadsden Green project, where it's located now.
Right.
So we're talking about using part of West Edge. So all this would be considered together?
Yes.
Okay. Then on the east side per se, you know, with the homes over there, Meeting Street Manor and such as that, we were talking about doing higher density there anyway.
That's right. And again, this is very much in line with what the Housing Authority was planning on doing and wanting to do.
Right.
This is just putting it on steroids, and us, you know, them not working in a silo and us working in a silo trying to solve the same problem. This is us working together, again, with the private sector. We're going to bring in the private sector to fund most of this, but we would be putting in the land. So just to cut to the chase on some of this, I think this gets into, this is how it would look, you know, again, just the terms of the massing. Well, we'll come back to that. Where is the org chart? Is that it farther back? Okay, well, while we're here, the idea is to say, all right, Housing Authority, your property at Gadsden Green is worth X, and it's appraised at market value, and our property with MUSC is appraised at Y. And we put those into a partnership together. And we then say, all right, this is the general design of that area. This is the zoning, the MUW3. And we're going to then collectively go out to the market and get a developer to build this plan, this general plan. And they can tweak the plan. I mean, we want them to bring their expertise. We're not dictating everything, but we are eliminating a lot of the hurdles in terms of entitlements, in terms of zoning. We are paving the way for something that we know we will work within our community, and will have the numbers to address our affordable housing needs. And they're going to put money into the deal too. And it'll be, I mean, sounds pretty complicated, but this kind of stuff is done all the time in terms of private sector, where people put lands in, a joint venture partners, and there's structures that reward the developer for successes and gives us control where we're not just totally handing it off. But again, the most important thing here is that these properties would be permanently restricted for affordable housing in perpetuity, and they would be perfectly located right next to the major job centers that we have here in the city, and tied to our short and long-term plans for public transportation and resiliency efforts.
Another
Yeah.
question, you know, while we were working with the Magnolia project, and they was talking about giving us, what, 2 acres of land or something like
They've
that?
given us, yeah, we have land from them.
So, but we could probably look at that to try to include that into our general
Yep,
goal of
In fact-
reaching our goal so far as housing concerned.
no question. I had
Okay.
them actually in my office this
Okay.
morning, so talking about that very thing.
Okay.
This is a concept that can be replicated, but let me just be clear, like what we're talking about here is a pretty heavy lift, and we've dedicated staff specifically to run this initiative, should council and all of our strategic partners be willing to lean in on it. And it would largely be led by Josh Martin, who I think all of you all know, and his ability and expertise on dealing with the nuances of complexities like this. And so what we've talked about is the west side, Gadsden Green with West Edge Foundation in a partnership. And now I want to just pivot over to 995 and Morrison Drive and the east side, okay? So we've done a breakdown, again, those same building prototypes. This is 80 units to an acre. This is about 800 units. that could fit onto the 6.3 acres of 993 Morrison Drive, which we are currently under contract to purchase from the county. More on that later. Then we also have that we would put into this the Mount Pleasant Street property at the top of the low line where the Parks and Rec is. And, you know, it's the beginning of the low line. It's one of the main entryways into the peninsula, and we don't need to park lawnmowers there, right? We're building a really nice facility just up the road where we can move our Parks and Recs department at the city ops. We have some space there that can accommodate, and then we could put this land into the mix for affordable housing as well.
I thought we had rezoned that for higher height.
We probably have. I mean, in terms of, it's probably Upper Peninsula. The Upper Peninsula largely has height with the exception of Morrison Drive. Morrison, 993, the county site, is at 6 stories. We didn't put it in the UP, right? Right. We're going to come back to 993 here in a minute, but I just wanted to kind of give you all the context. So again, and so what we would be doing here is you've got these 4 housing authority locations, and I don't exactly know, we would work with the housing authority how to divvy it up, where we would say, okay, one RFP would be the west side, right? One RFP would be what we call central, which would probably be Meeting Street Manor and what was the other one? Anyway, Meeting Street Manor, and another one that would be with the Parks property on Mount Pleasant Street. And then Ragboro and Cooper River Courts would be with 993, 995. And again, we need property large enough to build the first phase, build first, so then we could start systematically redeveloping the housing authority properties in total, right? Again, here's a list. What's exciting to me about this, guys, is this is doable. I mean, we have the land, we have the potential partnerships. You know, it will be expensive, and we'll have to go find federal money through HUD, through other grant sources. We'll have to work with the state. But I'm pretty convinced that this can be achieved. And when you talk about 5,000 units total, which again, I'm talking about just the bottom 2, the orange and the blue that would be on Peninsula specific, that's a large enough economies of scale where you get good pricing when it comes to design. You get good pricing when it comes to construction. And if we do prototypes, which Charleston, as I pointed out earlier, is full of, I mean, a single house is nothing but a rectangle box, right? That can be stamped out in any different way you want, and you can get economies of scale for almost like a modular type of construction. So we've done a pretty deep dive in this. We've gone and visited manufacturing plants, mainly concrete. So we're not doing cheap modular. We're doing like concrete modular that would last 100 years, which is what we need. And again, this is an achievable goal. It's an ambitious goal, but it's an achievable goal. So where we are, we've talked about West Edge, the partnerships. Again, this is how we would propose to do it with the housing authority, where again, we would just put everything's open, full sunshine, values, market rate, our values, market rate. They go into a partnership. We then put that into a deal with the private sector. And we've tried to structure this in a way that's very similar to what we're doing with the Army Corps of Engineers, where we have a leadership team that would have some of their staff, some of our staff. But the city would be kind of leading things. We have more staff and expertise and background on this than the housing authority does. I mean, they're great at managing, but they're not great at developing, right? And so they understand that. They've been supportive of this effort. And I think there's a general excitement around it. So this is how it would be structured. And then, for example, on the west side, West Edge Foundation, there would be a three-way agreement with West Edge and then this entity with the private sector. Is that, you're following this? You have a question? Okay. Same thing would be, I think we've gone through this. And so the goal is for us as a city to formalize this with details, and we got legal ready to go on it, both outside and inside. Have Housing Authority sign off on it, have West Edge sign off on it, and their legal team sign off on it, so that we can go to an RFP on 3 different RFPs for the peninsula that would be related to these partnerships, if you're following. And I'd like to do that, there we go. I'd like to do that within the first quarter of this year. We can redo the zoning pretty quickly. It's just cut and paste on WH2 to go to 3 and put the 50% restriction on there. So again, I think this sets up well for moving this ball forward pretty quickly. Now, I think this would be the one, sorry, I probably should have waited on this. But this is how one would be or proposed, which was West Edge with Gadsden Green. You have 2, which is Ragsboro. I misspoke a little bit earlier, 995. And then Meeting Street, Mount Pleasant, and Meeting Street Manor. And it would just be half of Morrison Drive. And then the other one would be Meeting Street Manor, the balance of Meeting Street Manor and Cooper River Courts with, and we've kind of broken it up this way because Integral has been awarded this. I'll be honest with you, in all likelihood, that deal will probably need to be revisited. There's some things in there, and I would think that they would be open to it because it would be expanding the potential. But I don't, and we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. I'm not sure they would be guaranteed it, but they certainly are a very reputable developer, a lot of experience, would know this area, would be a front runner, and on the short list, I would think. But can't say that the deal as it's structured right now would work with what we're proposing. And as I understand it, I've not reviewed the document, but from the Housing Authority there is an ability for either party to get out of the existing contract.
Let me ask a question. Anyone have any question before we go forward?
Yeah, just a quick, couple quick comments. I'm really impressed with the details of this plan personally. I think it's much more detailed and informative than, of course, earlier iterations. One of the concerns I had with the way Bloomberg briefed it a few months ago was they didn't seem to anticipate or even consider the anticipation of an unexpected change in economy or the economics of things, which of course would change the percentage of those needing affordable housing. This I like in the sense that back to that slide, Mr. Mayor, where you had kind of the phased approach, the 5 steps on the timeline. To me, seems it allows for flexibility. So as we're going along with this process, based on economic conditions and unexpected population growth or decline, et cetera, it seems like there'll be some flexibility built in as we go along. Is that the case?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, this is detailed, and this is one thing that I've been struggling with for the past 2 years as mayor is, like, when to put too much detail forward on the things that we're working on, because we want people's input. I mean, a lot of this has not been made public until today. That's not because we're trying to not be transparent, but it's because we're trying to figure out if something can actually work, right? And you can see these are watercolors. So yes, when you ask about flexibility, there's plenty of flexibility in here, but it also is a roadmap that is achievable. And that's what I wanted to make sure we had, that we can deliver something that can be acted on and can be set up for success, not just, hey, we really need some more units. Wouldn't it be great? And just hope for the best. This is being very, I would just say, proactive on that. And the good news is that in canvassing the community, Housing Authority, West Edge, et cetera, the major employers, we all want the same thing. We all want the same thing. We know the need is there.
Any other questions before we go forward?
I do.
Oh.
Listen, all of this, the concept and all, I agree with it. And great detail on, how the plans could unfold. But the devil's in the financing.
Mhm.
And, if you look at what the Housing Authority has now, virtually all those buildings, they're all, you're right, past their depreciable life, needs to be replaced. But 100% of them, as far as I know, basically these public housing projects are paid for. So on the other side of this, creating, 50% affordable, 50% market rate, which I understand why that makes sense. Are all of them going to be leveraged up? On the other side of this, does the Housing Authority come up with anything that's paid for?
Look, the financing structure on this, to your point, is going to be complicated.
Right.
It is going to be nuanced. It probably won't be the same for the east side as it is the west side. We're going to be bringing in. But what I can tell you is that, and I hear you on over leveraging
Right.
and putting public dollars at real risk versus, knowing what we have, right? But what we have is not working. It doesn't fit the need, not even close. And so we have to do something. And I think we're going to have a lot more detail. And you're right, the devil is in the details, and the financing is going to be involved. And council is going to have to review and approve that very carefully, as will the Housing Authority.
Right.
They're going to have to sign off on this too. But what I can tell you, and again, what gives me optimism, and I guess I have to have optimism on things like this, is, I've met now with the Secretary of HUD twice, and he's repeated, look, we want to help you. We understand that the way we do things is not very efficient, and it's not resulting in a lot of dollars going to bricks and mortar. So we're happy to work with y'all on a pilot program on how we could be more efficient. But you know what you need in order to do a pilot program is you need a plan. You need a concrete plan. And this is what we're providing. And it's one that's not 40 units, it's 5,000 market rate. I mean, it's 5,000 total units, 2,500 of which would be affordable, which is what they want to see these days.
Yeah, I understand that, Mr. Mayor. I understand the pictures and the buildings and the outline and not doing the Texas donut versus, a community.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you on that. But we need that kind of details on the financing.
No question. And again, we don't have that yet because we don't have, again, it's two steps forward. You got to get, two other people to get 2 steps forward. You got to
Right.
move in unison. And
Right.
so the goal would be, we agree in concept, we then work the details out. And then before we leverage up the property or do anything that would jeopardize it, we're going to be going through very detailed Excel spreadsheets and making sure that we understand and all public dollars understand what the risk is associated and make informed decisions. We're not at a point where we can make that, give that level of detail yet.
I understand that part. But we got aggressive period here, the first
Yeah.
quarter of next year, basically 3
Well,
months.
it's an RFP that is, again, bringing in a partner to help us. We're not selling the land yet. We're gonna get the RFP. We're going to then put the financing and details together,
Right.
and then we're going to sign off on it and vote.
Okay, let me ask this. Now this is on the Housing Authority part. Do they have appraisals, or are they getting appraisals saying what their property is worth, inclusive of the sky above, basically? Because the real value of the affordable housing is the 5th, 6th, 7th story above.
Yeah, I mean, they would have a market rate appraisal as though they were selling it to the private sector. And with the zoning in place that we're proposing to put on
Okay.
our property and their property, which I'm going to get to that in a minute too.
So then if an equity partner comes in, it's going to be based on value, current values, appraised values,
Yeah.
appraised values with our zoning in place, which should increase the property value.
That's right.
The seconds?
So not to get too deep in the details, but seeing as this is something that's going to come up quickly, if an RFP goes out, who puts the RFP out? Us, the housing authority?
It
or
would be
do
this,
jointly?
it would be this partnership that would be putting out, we'd be putting out together.
Okay, 'cause-
And it would be us, and just for clarity, again, I want to be, it'd be us with the housing authority on the east side and us via West
West Edge.
Edge and the housing authority on the west.
So it's with Integral on the eastern edge, the project there, that was between the housing authority and Integral, right?
That's it,
That was
yeah.
done without the
Yeah, yeah.
city's oversight and input. But I think,
Right. But they've been great to work on.
I get that, but establishing a pattern and practice of consistency, I think we need to make sure the city's got its hand in this from the beginning to the end.
Question. No
right?
question. No question.
Councilmember Gregory and Councilmember McBride both have their hands up.
Councilman Gregory, then afterwards.
Yeah, just in terms of ownership, the housing authority by statute would be required to do 1-for-1 replacement.
Yeah.
When they do the 1-for-1 replacement, they're not giving up the ownership of the subsidy to those properties. Wouldn't they maintain the ownership of all those units?
In all likelihood, I mean, either through the partnership or it could be horizontally created within the partnership to allow for that. But those are kind of legal gymnastics that we need to make sure are addressed.
And I think that that's the kind of clarity
Yeah.
that I think that we're all going to need on this one.
Yeah.
As
look,
you
I
know,
mean,
I'm just, giving you my sense of where I think we stand, particularly as it relates to the housing authority's interests and where and how that will be seen. I mean,
again, yes, you're,
and
you,
the reason why I asked the question is when I ask Integral, what would the housing authority's ownership be in the total project? They told me 10%.
Right.
I don't know where that came from. What equation was used. Again, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but these are the financial part of it to me that is going to be very, very important to make sure that this project works.
You're absolutely right. And again, I just, that is why we're at watercolor stage right now. But again, I've had enough conversations with legal, both inside, outside, and seen enough other projects to know that this is achievable. I mean, it is going to be a lot of details to be determined. I got it. But I do think this is something that can be structured in a way that works and is a responsible public investment.
Someone else had their hands up?
Councilmember
Yeah,
McBride.
I just wanted to pull the thread a little bit, just tied to my earlier comments, and then Councilman Waring, can you go back to the timeline slide where you have kind of like the phases?
That's
This
gonna be
one,
hard.
way back, you talking
No,
about?
it's like it's like a general,
Oh, yeah,
phase
okay.
5, left to right, kind of a thing. It's quite a ways back.
Sure. And again, I want to say that this timeline, before I get there, it's in watercolors too.
Yeah. No, and I just want to,
There we go.
yeah, there you go.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, to me, this is positive in the sense that, there's there's big chunks there, which are kind of, expensive and, will require, a lot of the financial detail part of it. But to me, that shows that for each phase of this thing, we'll be able to reassess and readjust and be flexible based on, like I said, the unexpected economic conditions, unexpected population growth, unexpected need for housing. Am I reading that correctly? Like, it's not like we're deciding when this is decided. It's not like we're set in stone until 2032. That's the plan. Like, we'll be able to adjust slightly
No,
along
I
the
mean,
way.
anybody that knows anything about development, whether you're doing a renovation on your house or you're building 3,500 units, will tell you that what I'm showing you right now is not what's going to happen.
Right.
And it's going to need to be flexible. We're going to need to be engaged on this as a council. We're going to need to be open to suggestions from the private sector. We're going to need to be open to suggestions from our partners with West Edge, with the Housing Authority, with advocacy groups and the like. And I think by doing that, what you're going to see is that this will get better, more solid foundation, both literally and financially.
Yep, it looks good. Thanks.
Any other questions before we go forward?
Yeah, have we gotten to the point to where we have a few who will backstop the debt? Are we're not there yet?
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. I mean, again, the land value is going to be significant in this in terms of capitalization. You're going to have a lot of potential debt that could be federally backed. So, you know, we're going to be working to lean in on that as much as possible and make sure that what we're doing here is not putting the city or the Housing Authority or West Edge Foundation in financial jeopardy. But there is some risk here, folks. I mean, there's no question that there's going to be some risk here from where we are right now, but I think the risk of not doing something is far, far greater in terms of our macroeconomy. Okay, so we got to get into, this is the general plan, and we've talked about it. I know it's been a lot to go through, and I really appreciate everybody's patience. Again, I want to say hats off to staff for a lot of hard work and a lot of creative thinking on this. But we need to address two different business items, which are kind of step one in the potential partnership agreement. One is West Edge Foundation purchase. Right now, we own West Edge, or we are partners in West Edge with MUSCF, right? MUSCF, ever since the MUSC proper has decided to focus their attention on Calhoun Street, has said, look, we feel like this foundation would be better served if the city were really running point and you bought us out. So we've had a number of different conversations on that. I said, look, I think our preference would be to not buy you out. Y'all just be partners with us. But they have said, look, we think this is, we're excited about this, but we prefer it if you buy us out. So what has been tentatively, well, what has been discussed that I'm presenting here for discussion purposes is they've come up with a valuation of approximately $25 million. And the way that would be funded would be there's $10 million in the West Edge account. So that would go, we would pay that to them, and they would take back a note of $15 million for 3 to 5 years. It accrued, hear me out, accrued 7%. And the way that would be paid off is when we do this RFP, that we would bring in a private sector that would pay the $15 million and have MUSC out of the foundation, and they would be a member of. So the city wouldn't be coming out of pocket anything in terms of cash from our borrowing capacity. This would be using funds that are in place, which MUSC owns part of, and going towards a value to get them out. And the one condition, because that is lower than a potential valuation, we don't know exactly what the value is, but they've asked for a first right of offer on a percentage of the affordable units because they really want to use this for their own housing. We don't have to get them out. I think it would be cleaner to get them out where we have, I mean, it's already enough cooks in the kitchen. But this wouldn't be a huge burden on the city cash-wise to do it. And I think any outstanding obligation, that $15 million, I think could be pretty quickly taken care of by the private sector coming in. Because what we don't want on these deals, and I'll be real clear about this, is a partner that comes in on the private sector that doesn't bring money to the table. We want somebody that is big enough to write off their own balance sheet a real investment into the deal, because we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that this is going to ultimately cost, just this one. And you need to know somebody that's coming to the table that's got a deep balance sheet. So that's what has been tentatively proposed, this has not been signed off on by West Edge. It's not been signed off on by MUSCF. This is what I've talked to Stuart Ames, the executive director of the foundation, about. So we don't have to determine this right now, but it is worth consideration. I think it would be cleaner, and I want to just reiterate, we've pushed them to stay in, but their strong preference would be to get out.
Any other questions?
I got a quick question. The $10 million cash, what's the source of that money?
I think it's revenues that have come from the sale of properties. It's built up over time.
And it's sitting in an account. Is that a jointly held account with?
Yes,
us and
it's
the
actually, well,
foundation?
no, it's West Edge Foundation.
Right.
So that money would just flow over to the foundation?
We would, yeah, the foundation would say, you know, we're making a distribution and it's all going, we would agree that it all goes to, right.
Any other questions?
There's
I
actually
do.
12 million in the account.
Yeah. You know, going back to the beginning, you know, Horizon, now West Edge Foundation, was supposed to be a TIF, as you said, I was on the foundation board at the time, to develop pharmaceutical and biotech
Right,
industry.
yep.
Obviously, that changed. In other words, this property was to be switched over into private sector, which would help to fund the TIF for the infrastructure.
Right.
Okay. I understand Medical University's objective has changed, and I agree with that. Okay, and we've done heavy lifting very quickly to help rezone what they like to do on the core of their campus. But when there was a three-way partnership with the South Carolina Research Authority, Medical U Foundation, and the city, and under Governor Haley, she didn't think the Research Authority should be in the development business. So they got out. At that time, Mayor Rowley and the city approached Medical U about being 50-50. Medical U said no. So then we stepped up and we bought the Research Authority's third interest in it. In the meantime, obviously, the property has appraised, but I don't like the idea of getting any debt to get their property. If they want to reduce their percentage ownership, I get that with the cash. But the aggressive building plan that we have, it would make much more sense for the city to have as much liquidity as it can. Medical University would be taking away some of our liquidity with this transaction. So the way that one's currently structured, I mean, that doesn't really make sense for us to pick up debt on property that, at least originally, TIFs work when the private sector come in and develop the TIF. So, you know, why don't they bring in a partner to do the workforce development housing or affordable housing, and we keep our share of the money.
Again, all good points. I think that the simplest thing would be, I mean, I hear you on the debt. This is being viewed as a short-term bridge to get until we get the private sector to come in, and maybe they need to stay in until that happens. Would be one potential option. But we might risk the number going up if that happens. So, but again, we don't need to decide this now. This is being brought to y'all today. I think it's important for y'all to just know where things stand. This, again, I want to be really clear. This has not been approved by MUSC Foundation Board either. These are talking points that, you know, I think it isn't really a negotiation. This is something that we're discussing as public entities for figuring out the best solution forward for all parties and for, you know, the same goals that we're looking for. So I present this to you. I think we need to discuss this in more detail, but I just wanted to put it out there on the table. And I think as Councilman Gregory has his hand
Councilmember
up.
Gregory, yes.
Councilman Gregory?
Yes, as a part of that deal, did they want a set aside of a certain amount of units?
They want first an option on units. I mean, they're very excited about units, and they might look to master lease a block of them for their staff. I mean, that's the kind of thing that needs to be worked out. I mean, I think financially they're going to be committed to it. What they're trying to do is, you know, take a
They
cook
just
out of
want,
the kitchen.
they want us to build the units. Seems
That's
like
right. Well, they want us with the housing authority
To
and
build
frankly,
it.
the private sector to do it.
Because whatever is built, if it's units, they're going to be privy to them just as they've been with regard to the 772 units that West Edge has built already. 25 or 30% of those units are occupied by
Oh,
MU
yeah.
staff.
Yeah.
So regardless of how we do this, set aside or otherwise, if we build housing units, they're going to use them.
Agreed. It's just, are they for doctors? Or are they for technicians? Nurses? I mean, this is where you're talking about affordability issues coming into play. It really is. And you mentioned one thing that I do want to point out here. Not all of what we're proposing here, and this would help on the financing too, is just rental. We would look to have portions of this, and that's where that building prototype comes in. We would look for part of this to have home ownership programs. You know, what percentage, I don't know. I mean, we got to get a lot more in the weeds here, but this is set up to allow for that. Okay, I got to go on to the next one.
On the affordability side as well.
But that is really almost exclusively where the home ownership would be on the affordability side.
Okay, thank you.
Now,
First, let me say this, Mr. No, first, let me say this.
one more topic.
No, let me say this. I want to thank you and staff for bringing this detail forward. So, I mean, it's easy to come in and ask, questions. Some of them are going to have to be difficult. Some of them we'll need to discuss outside.
I like being on the hot seat.
Right. Well, that's not the hot seat. Those things make the eventual final proposal better.
That's right.
But anyway, I don't want to make it seem like you were on the hot seat. You're not. I mean, you informing us so we can be better at
Helping to
frankly,
make a decision. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Agreed.
So thank
Agreed.
This is why, I had all the council members to be able to come to this workshop so they can be informed and they can see exactly and know exactly what the mayor's proposing. And we haven't voted on anything yet, but I want all the council members here to be informed and know what's going on so they can make a proper decision. They can look at it and read over it and go back and ask questions later. The mayor gonna be around. You can always call them later on and ask questions. So
Yeah.
this is why we're doing this today, so we wouldn't have to come up later on. Well, I didn't hear this. I didn't know this. So this is why I want all the council members to be here to hear it from him personally. Thank you.
So a big part of this that we've been talking about is 993, 995 Morrison Drive. And I'll just come out and say we've run into a little bit of an issue. We are currently under contract to purchase that property for $30 million. And you will recall, we went back and forth. We offered them, $0, and we would put $25, $30 million into vertical. We've offered them 25. And so we ended on a purchase price of 30 million. They had an appraisal that, and again, you can see how it's a workhorse. It would accommodate a lot of affordable housing and market rate housing too. Here's where we are. The one on the left was where Charleston County had an appraisal done that they provided to us as part of the due diligence. It was their market value, and it gave a range of values from $23 million to $38 million. And Councilman Seekings and Councilman Waring were part of these discussions with the county. The appraisal didn't assume a tech overlay, which the county does dispute that it applies to them. We feel pretty confident in our position that it does. And I think some of y'all were on council when it was put in place and what the intent is. And so what we did is I said, let's appraise it as is with the tech overlay, which is, you can see up top there, that number came in at 22.8 million. And I said, well, I know there have differences of that, and we want to be good, partners here. So let's get them to appraise it without the tech overlay. Like, let's just say we agreed to remove it. That value came in at 28.2. But then I said, look, part of the purchase and sale agreement is what we've been talking about. 50% of the units, residential units, would be permanently deed restricted based on a chart that we all came up with that was, 120, 80, 100, 60, and down to 30%. There it is, right there. And I said, if you had that restriction on there, the value goes back down to 22.6. So that's our appraisal, okay? I wrote to the county and I said, look, we want to buy this. This is a big part of our larger plan that I'm going to be presenting. And this is where the build first strategy, I think, would work. And I said, why don't we get our two appraisers? Because we're fiduciary duties of public money, right? We shouldn't sell things for much over or much less than an appraised value, and they shouldn't either, right? In theory. So they sent me back. I said, let's get our two appraisers together and let them come up with a value, which is a pretty standard thing that used to be done. I got a response a few days ago that said, look, we feel pretty confident in our number, the 30 million, and they had their appraiser review it, and their value without the tech overlay, with all the affordable requirements that are in the purchase and sale agreement, their value was 34.5. So they feel like they're giving us a deal. I'll be honest with you, I don't know where to go on this because we got a $12 million lower value. And that's a gap that's pretty significant. So what I'm here to ask the committee on and ultimately council on December 2nd is, how do y'all want to proceed? Again, we've talked about how important this is for this potential partnership. We need a build first site. And so what I've come up with is two options, okay? And now you can see it's dropped into my numbers here. This is the Cooper River Bridge TIF. Let me go back here. Option A, and I'll get you some reading glasses here, is that we would go to the county and say, all right, we'll agree to pay more than our appraised value with the deed restrictions, and we'll go to put a number out there at 27 million. We would use we would commit the 3 million to do drawings or go vertical or use it for affordable housing on the site. We're not trying to put money back in our pocket. We'll rezone the property, just, the MUWH that we're going to do anyway, right? And we'll remove it out of the Laurel Island PUD, which, is just a cleanup. But it's 27 million, and we take it, right? Option B is if they just don't want to have that discount, and I respect that. I mean, is that since they have a value of 34.5 million, 34.2 million with the affordable housing restrictions on there, I would think we could agree to put those in place and let them sell it for 34 million, and we get the affordable housing that we all want. They get the affordable housing that they want, and we'll do all of the, we'll remove the tech overlay. We'll have that WH3 in there. We'll give them, right now it's zoned for only 6 stories. We'll give them an extra story because that's more in keeping with the Upper Peninsula zoning. So, that should increase the value of it, right? And what we would then do with the 30 million in scenario B, if that's the way they decide to go, because we would terminate the agreement with the condition that we pull it out of the PUD, we rezone it, and let them sell it on the open market. We'd take the $30 million, and there are a couple of sites that I won't get into that are available that would accommodate approximately 200 units in the Cooper River Bridge TIF that could be utilized for the same concept, the build first. It'd be a little bit different than the proposal you all just said. Again, that's why they were watercolors. This is maybe the first pivot, but it would give us a lot more cash because it wouldn't be as expensive of land. It would give us more cash to actually build something or help build something, and potentially some more funds to go back into the Cooper River Bridge TIF for things like there's a few houses that might need some stabilization over there that we could do a potential loan to or something to the effect. There are other places to spend money in the Cooper River Bridge tip if we know this site is going to ultimately be at least 50% of it affordable, and let the county and the private sector do it. I mean, in a way, it's kind of expanding the partnership, and bringing them in. They would, I'm sure, let a private sector do it. But we would have the assurances, we'd all have the assurances, us and the county would have the assurances that this is going to be affordable in perpetuity. So those are the two options that I'd like your feedback on, so that we can at least respond to the county.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that, because when we first met with them, Councilman Seekings, myself, and Cutlass, and you, Mr. Mayor, I mentioned to them in the first thing, I said, why we can't work together? Why we have to be paying all this money together? We are two municipalities. Why we can't work together? But they said they want this money, and that's all they want. They didn't want to hear anything about any reduction or anything like that at all. And I had a problem with it when I was sitting there.
Well, the good news is that they would actually get more money than we're willing to pay them. And we would get the affordable housing if they would agree to it, which I would think they would, because again, their appraisal is very clear that it's 34 million, and it says that this is assuming the breakdown we have in the purchase and sale agreement is put into place.
Councilman Seekings?
No, just really quickly, I'm trying to think back, and I don't have it in front of me. The contract we've got currently does have some contingencies in it, right? I mean, it's not just 30 million cash that we're locked into. It had to appraise.
Yeah. We didn't actually, I don't think it had, we have an open due diligence period. I don't think it's specifically called out an appraisal, but I mean, there's another issue that I do want to just make you all aware of, and I think you are, that has a little bit of heartburn to me, and I think it can be solved for, but one contingency on the first option, if we stay under contract, is the Lupert Adler piece that's in the middle. We would need to make sure, we would have to have some assurances or guarantees that would remain public access, because the county doesn't own it. And Lupert Adler's been very open to doing that, but we need that documented, because if that's not there, I mean, it is a much more challenging site to develop. So anyway, and Josh just handed me a note that our due diligence period, we have to determine this before it ends on January 7th. We've done a lot of due diligence already. What the county has asked for us in their recent letter is that, look, if you don't want to move forward, we'd appreciate you letting us know sooner rather than later, which I respect. But I think, again, it would be really important for me to just know if we're going to clean that up and make sure we further enhance the value with the zoning and removing the tech overlay and adding another height, that, that they're in agreement that it would be zoned, this MUW3, that would, guarantee that there's going to be affordable housing there.
That's the trick, right? Right there. It's just what it's gets zoned to on property that we don't currently own, and their sort of accession to it, right? Would we want to do that cooperatively with them?
And I would think, again, based on their appraisal,
Right.
I don't see why there would be any pushback on it, because they can get, per an appraisal, 34 million with this zoning in place, or with the general. I mean, we'd have to work out we don't have the zoning classification yet. And I do want to be very clear too, this isn't spot zoning either. This is what we're looking at, zoning all of the housing authority properties, our property. West Edge doesn't really need it because it has even more, but we do want to put the restriction on West Edge too. So, so again, I'd love y'all's input on this.
Well, if they think that they can get 34 million with those conditions on it and sell it to a third-party private sector developer, which will include 50% affordability in perpetuity, and that property goes on the tax scrolls, that's a no-brainer.
Yep.
I mean, to me, we should just go let them do that. And then if you think there's other opportunities out there for the same type of development with the 50% affordable housing under the new MU3 zoning, and we can purchase that property for less than 30 or 34 million, then, I mean, to me, just as a good business decision, that's exactly the way we should go.
Just to be clear, it wouldn't be the same size as
No,
this.
I
This is
get
pretty
it.
unique, but I mean, it would definitely, we could accommodate the build first strategy on, there are 2 or 3 other sites And we have made some inquiries and there is interest, but for obvious reasons, I don't want to
Gotcha.
highlight what those are right now.
It shouldn't be law. I think it's important to, for the record, for people to know that this site doesn't come without some complications because of that strip down the middle that we don't own, that Rupert Adler does, that they paid somewhere between $5 and $7.5 million for. And if we didn't have public access to it, that would really gum up the works on being able to get max volume for any kind of housing, including but not limited to affordable housing. And having sat in with all the meetings on the county, I mean, Councilmember Mitchell led with his chin. It was the right way to lead. It was like, well, just give it to us.
Right.
That offer unfortunately was rejected on site. But I think that just from a business perspective and a bang for the buck, if they really believe that number at 34 with their appraisal, with all those conditions, give them 8 stories, remove the tech overlay, restrict it at 50%.
It's 7 stories, but yeah.
7
yeah,
stories, sorry. And, let's go find another site.
Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the county is our ally.
Yes,
And
agreed.
and we are theirs. The common ground is the affordable housing. They want it, we want it. The divide is just too great. $12 million differential without assurances on the part that Mr. Adler owns. I think we ought to help whatever we can do, pull out all stops to help the county create affordable housing on that side. I actually like Plan B better. And I think sooner rather than later, because they certainly have a decision to make, as do we. Councilman Seeking is right, boy, there's a lot of issues with that property, especially with, I call it the missing middle, with the missing middle not being known whether you can get it or not.
Just for clarity, you're talking about not the affordable housing, Mr. Missing Middle. You're talking about Cool Blow Street Extension Missing Middle.
I'm
Right,
sorry.
right.
The property Mr. Adler owns. So I actually like, if the county is in favor of us rezoning it with the affordable restriction on it and whatever we can do to help them get 34 million, I think we should try to do that.
And again, rezoning it, we would pull it out of the Laurel Island PUD. I mean, that's just a complexity that it doesn't really need to be in there. And it was originally being contemplated as part of that larger development. And it's still in the TIF, it's still in the Laurel Island TIF. And, so I think that what I'd like to do is, well, so am I hearing from the committee, and I'd love, if any other committee members want to, oh, sorry.
Not on the committee either.
Yeah, great. Well, if any of the other committee members,
Yeah, Mr.
We're
Mayor,
the subcommittee.
Mr. Mayor, this is Gregory. I like B also. I mean, I'm on the committee, and because even with the $30 million deal, if we don't have access, that's dead anyway, isn't it?
It would be. I mean, it'd be a big issue. I want to just be clear. I'm not throwing that in as like a stink bomb. I mean, y'all know it. I've had conversations with Rupert Adler. They have been willing to work with the city. I mean, but we just need it documented. I mean, we would need it locked down. I think it's doable, but it is by no means guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're going to go that route, we need to flesh that out pretty quickly.
The
bigger issue is the value.
I think that B is much more attractive.
Okay, so what I would ask, Mr. Chairman, is if the committee, I think this needs to go to council. I'd like to have the decision made at council before I respond. And I'd like for the committee to make a recommendation to council, and we can pick it up on December 2nd, and then I'll respond to the county the next day.
Yeah.
Just one more quick thing. I think just to completely put out the economic picture here, the county's appraisal assumes affordability and a sale to a third party, private investor, which means they're also assuming that whoever buys that will be able to carry the property tax burden.
Yes.
Because this is going to go back on the tax scroll.
Yes.
So this really, for us,
It's a
works
winner.
great, and it shows that the private sector can absorb even that and still hit the 50%.
Right.
We're going to learn a lot from that, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So do I have sorry.
I'm gonna ask for a motion. No, not you all. I'm gonna ask for a motion from the committee.
I move that we recommend to the body of the whole that we move with option B.
Okay,
But I get a second? Anybody still there?
I'll second
it.
Okay. It was moving second that we go with option B and we are forwarded on to full council. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Opposers? Ayes have it.
Okay, I think that's it, guys. I mean, we went through a lot.
Yeah.
There we go. Cover the discussion.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you all.
You don't have anything else to bring before the committee? We stand adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.